guys, Editing Citation again. I just wanted to record a short intro for the second part of the Matt Powell video because it was really, really long when I first started editing it together, and I opted to do a two-parter. So, if you'll recall, Matt was talking about the woman at his company who had proposed they go out, and he said he was waiting until marriage. He was a lot more rude about it. So we're going to pick up with him finishing up that story and delving into something else. Well, I go on to delve into something else. Anyways, enjoy.
By corrupting mankind and then chancing it with diseases.
Oh, that's a very, very early 2000s purity culture take. Yeah, they really played up the STD, STI bit back then, and that Matt is very much also a product of that purity culture. That's some bullshit.
Look, scientifically, because people are so illiterate scientifically today. My goodness.
Matt would know. He is.
People in the atheist community, well, you know, if you go sleep around and you take the necessary precautions or whatever. Look, if you even just kiss somebody, you are very likely, if that person has it.
I really don't want, I'm going to let him go in a second, but I really, really do not want that very likely to stand without being challenged. If any time fluids are exchanged, there is a chance for virus transfer, for transmission, virus transmission. So if you have someone who is positive for some type of infection and it is a virus, anytime fluids are exchanged, there is a chance for transmission. There are precautions that you can take. There are medications you can take that will lower your viral load, especially when we're talking about like HIV and stuff. Like there's a whole bunch of new medications out. PrEP being like the main one that people really know about. And that's the one that I kind of know. I don't know very much about it, but that is the one that I know in terms of lowering your viral load to the point where it's not even detectable on tests anymore, which is amazing. So yeah, no, there are absolutely precautions you can take, and Matt knocking them is something that in my church was looked at as like doubling up on sin. So you're already having sex or whatever, and you're going to double up by then adding contraceptives on top of it, because the Catholic Church is super against pretty much all forms of contraceptives except for something that they like to call natural family planning, but it's a modernized version of the rhythm method. So like there's risk, there's things you can do to mitigate the risks. And if you and your partner agree on those mitigations, fantastic. The whole point is that you should be informed participants each in the relationship, and nothing is inherently risk-free, not even marriage, not even like pregnancy in marriage. I have existing, my last child was born almost 8 years ago. I have lasting pregnancy injuries that I'm still seeing medical professionals about to this day. Like this year I had a minor surgical repair, and I'm still dealing with pregnancy injuries. So it's not a guarantee. Anyway.
Disease to get the disease. It gets transmitted just...
It's also not that bad. We can treat most of these diseases.
The same way.
It's not the death sentence it was back in medieval, Europe.
Okay, so here's the thing. Nobody should, in their right mind, be taking chances like this, going outside of God's will and doing these things. The Bible says sin has pleasure for a season. So yeah, people say, you're saying it's not pleasurable. It may be pleasurable for some, but only for a season. Think about...
I I don't, who's accusing him of saying it's not pleasurable? That I've not heard, maybe it's in one of his other sermons, but in this sermon, he has not explicitly stated it's not pleasurable.
About pornography, I have a lot of scientific papers I was going to get into, but I'm kind of trying to hurry here. There are scientific papers. The title of one is...
Trying to hurry. We've been at this for 20 minutes, and we've got another 20.
Viewing porn shrinks the brain.
I tried to find this study, so the first time that I ran through this, when I didn't record with sound, I couldn't find this study. I did find studies that said that there's not enough data to suggest one way or the other whether porn has benefits or detriments to the brain. You can obviously have, like addictions to porn and have problems there, but that's not specifically porn's doing. That is something in your mental makeup, right? That's something that you should go see a therapist and talk through, or take even other drastic measures or whatever. But I couldn't find this, and he doesn't cite the source.
People say, oh man, I had these people at my job tell me, oh Matt, if you were really masculine, you would look on all these different women. That's what real men do.
Who talks like that? Can somebody in the comments, and maybe this is my own neurodivergence talking, but like I have not heard, I'm also a cis woman, so maybe that's it, and I'm not hanging around like dudes that say this, but like, is that a thing that men say to each other? Can you let me know in the comments?
Look, when you view inappropriate images, you shrink your striatum. That's the part of your brain that experiences pleasure. You shrink it.
Again, I couldn't find any actual studies that say this.
More inappropriate images that you view, the study says that the striatum, that part of the brain, for people that viewed inappropriate images more often, was smaller. Do you know what that means? Less satisfaction. Like I said earlier.
I'm sorry, Matt, are you a neurologist? Did you study like brain chemistry to any degree other than that one possibly pretend paper?
People in the world, sin has pleasure for a season, for sure. You go down that road, if you start looking at inappropriate things, it may feel good for a moment. But then all of a sudden, your brain is fried, your prefrontal cortex, which is there for...
I will say, so one, my partner and I recently had a conversation where we talked about the different porn that we liked. So that was a fun, spicy conversation that we had. Turns out we like similar things. I didn't have any hang-ups surrounding porn except when I was at like peak religiosity. It was something that I tried hard not to do because I thought I shouldn't do it. And then I felt like crap afterwards because I felt like I had done something wrong. So when you remove that barrier of shame because you're normal, and this is something that a lot of people do, and that there are healthy ways to approach it, it's okay. It's okay.
Decisions is gone. It erodes the brain. The scientific paper says that from the erosion...
He keeps saying scientific paper. He doesn't say what journal it was published in. He doesn't say who wrote it. He is cherry picking specific pieces out of it. And I bet you if it's a real paper and I can find it, I bet it doesn't actually support what he says, because he's done it before where like he's picked out a paper because he thinks it's supporting his thing, his point. And no, he does it later actually with a quote from Darwin. He thinks it's supporting his thing, but he's actually only cherry-picked a piece out and not included the rest of the context. And the rest of the context is actually the opposite view.
Of the prefrontal cortex, a brain that is critical for impulse control, to the damaging of the dopamine reward system. Well, that sounds real manly, all right. Yeah. That'll make you into a wimp. Yep. You don't need to...
The idea that someone can be a wimp is also very misogynistic. because anybody can be anything. And what makes you a man or a woman or a non-binary friend is what you decide. You decide who you are and what you do, and you define what defines. You pick what defines you, not any of this crap.
Watch that garbage. That's a fake fantasy. Get married and have a relationship with your spouse. Be real. Don't be fake.
I wonder if Matt watches Lord of the Rings. That's not real. That's fantasy. He seems like the type that would say that Harry Potter is not okay because it's witchcraft. But I wonder if he watches Lord of the Rings or Narnia. None of those are real. Having a fantasy is okay. The escapism can also be beneficial.
But that's what we live in. You ask an atheist even, what's the meaning of life? Well, my meaning of my life's whatever I make up. I'll just make it up.
That doesn't sound bad. That doesn't sound... I think he's trying to make fun, but he really yeah, I'd rather not be a human incubator. Okay, thanks.
You know, they're admitting that they're making up or make-believing a purpose for life. They don't think there is purpose, but they've decided to make believe. Oh, I'll just pretend there's purpose. Look, and they make it their purpose to tell everyone that there is no purpose.
No, I would have to highly disagree. I don't have atheists knocking on my door telling me there's no purpose, but I do have Christians knocking on my door telling me I'm going to go to hell unless I believe their particular flavor of Christianity.
That's literally what they are. If I pretended to be a fighter pilot, sorry, it doesn't make me a fighter pilot.
Doesn't that apply to doctorates as well? Huh.
When there's no meaning to life, when there's no God and everything magically spawns.
That's nihilism. Not every single atheist or agnostic is also a nihilist.
Through the Big Bang, where nothing caused nothing to explode and all that nonsense, doesn't make any sense.
There are also plenty of Christians that do believe the Big Bang. That's not exclusively atheist.
The Bible says that all men have not faith, and that there are wicked and unreasonable men who have not faith. So the people who don't have faith in Jesus, the Bible says they're wicked and they're unreasonable. So you could actually show them these scientific papers.
No, we can't, because we don't know where you got them or who wrote them.
You could sit down and you could play the science game with them. They won't listen. They don't care.
I mean, I wouldn't listen to you because you're an asshole. That has nothing to do with whether or not I care.
And then when you actually do get in the ring with them and you do pin them down, because you have a moderator, and you do pin them down, what do?
Matt needs a moderator or he can't actually get close to pinning anyone down because his side is bullshit.
Start crying. I literally had a guy a couple years ago, he cried.
I'm gonna throw up a literally count. We had a Hovind hand up count. I'm gonna have a literally count for how many times he says literally, because I think my suspicion is he says literally when it didn't happen, or it didn't happen the way. He's saying literally for extra emphasis. If it had happened, he could just say that it happened. Why are you throwing that emphasis in there?
I brought this up to him. He started crying. I'm sorry, the facts are the facts. You got to get it right.
You're not sorry, and the facts are the facts, but you are misinterpreting them poorly a lot.
There's to it. And I just want to say, the Lord loves us we are the bride of Christ. So what that means is that, Jesus loves us in the same way that we should love our spouse. So here's the thing. Jesus said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Once you're saved, you're always saved. Eternal security. Amen.
That's a difference that the Catholics don't ascribe to, because the Catholics are also works-based. So in Catholicism, you could be raised Catholic and then turn away from the church and still go to hell.
The same way, you should never leave your spouse. Just as Jesus will never leave you, Don't abandon the ship when your shipmate starts bleeding out. Help them up. The Bible says, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. And people say, well, these young men always say, well, I just don't understand why my wife just hasn't come into my life yet. I say, well, are you looking? Well, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, so the Lord's just going to bring her. Whoso...
Interesting crossing of his hands, that like a lean and a cross of the hands. That's really, it's reading awkward to me. I don't know if he's super comfortable with this. And he's laughing at something. Somebody else must have reacted.
Whoso findeth? I found it. That means you were looking. Okay? You got to look. Seek and ye shall find, right? Knock and it shall be opened unto you. This is such basic logic, but people miss it because they don't read the Bible.
That's not the Bible.
We have to read the Bible. Pornography destroys your brain. It will fry your brain cells and take you down the darkest path that you never thought you would even go. You'll reach a point where you won't be...
I wonder if Matt had a BDSM, kink there for a while.
...be satisfied with it anymore. These are my words I wrote down because I want this to be so clear. You'll need more, and more, and more. Before you know it, no amount of women...
Speaking from experience, Matt?
...or men on that screen will cut it for you. Not only that...
He threw in or men. He was talking to men about pornography, and then he realized women may also look at pornography, so he threw in men on the screen. Not homosexuals, though. No. Just the cis hetero people.
That it will wreck your marriage. You know the number one reason that people get divorced today? Pornography.
That is patently false. It's finances. He says that next. But pornography, I did go look this up. If you look at any, if you do a Google search and you look at semi-reputable responses, pornography doesn't even make the top 10 for reasons why people get divorced or split up. It's not because of pornography. And that goes back to security and jealousy and how openly and you feel like you can communicate and comfortable you are communicating with your partner about it. Are they watching pornography because they enjoy it? Are they watching it because they need it? Approach the question with curiosity, but also approach why it bothers you with curiosity as well, if it does bother you. If it doesn't bother you, then cool. Me and my partner had the conversation the other day about the stuff that we like to watch separately. And that was a fun conversation. And I highly encourage people to have more conversations like that. Anyway.
Second reason is finances. These people that live together, they say, I have my bank account, he has his bank account. But we're together. No, you're not.
Part of the reason why it's so hard for women to leave abusive relationships is because they do not have control over finances. There are several other reasons why it's difficult to leave, but being able to afford to leave is a big one, and you can't squirrel away money, or you have a harder time squirreling away money if the abusive partner has full access to the finances. It's not a sign of a lack of commitment to have your own bank account. It is practical and it is responsible. And again, if you're clear and open with your partner about this, you don't even necessarily, you don't specifically have to tell them what's in the account or that you have it. Part of being able to use it when you need to in an emergency is that they don't know it exists. But if you have a secure relationship, it's not going to be an issue that you have separate accounts. If both of you see eye to eye on the finances, it's not going to be a problem that you have separate accounts. Matt is making this about things that are just the surface level like visual part of a problem. He is not actually addressing any of the underlying potential issues. He's not addressing lack of trust. He's not addressing potential, like gambling problems or trouble with finances or anything like that. Like, he's not actually getting at the root of anything. This is all surface level misogynistic bullshit.
Get married and get a joint account. You might want to start.
You don't have to at all. I have not had a joint account with a spouse or partner at any point.
Getting closer to your spouse with your finances. If it's the second cause of divorce, get that right. And we have to realize, no matter what, because men are always going to struggle with lust. That's something that's a problem for us. It's because we've fallen. We're sinful creatures.
Can women not struggle with lust? Is this only men? Like, he's playing on stereotypes, and it's really bugging me. And maybe that's just because, like, I don't feel like I fit into, nicely into the good little Christian girl box, and I never did. But you don't have to struggle with lust if you accept that it's part of the human experience. If you don't like the thoughts that come up when you see something, 1, look away. 2, talk to your therapist about intrusive thoughts. Because those are things you can't control. You can't actually control those. And it's not on the other person to attempt to mitigate that for you. You need to do the work to figure out whether you can manage those yourself, whether you may need anxiety medication, all sorts of reasons. So to just say men struggle with lust, men have lust, like, these are base human reactions to things. They are not inherently good or bad. They just are.
Creatures. But what we need to do is make no occasion for the flesh to provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. That means that if you struggle with wine and alcohol abuse and you have a Jack Daniels in your fridge, that you need to get rid of it.
You don't keep whiskey in the fridge. It should be room temperature. Don't put it in the fridge.
You don't need to have it just sitting in there. Oh, I'm trying to give it up. Yeah, right. It's sitting in your refrigerator. Get it out of there. Don't walk by I have an issue with sleeping with multiple people. The Bible says, come not nigh the door of her house. Don't even come near her house. Quit doing that. That's the silly stuff. That's what gets people in trouble. Being at the wrong place, with the wrong situation, at the wrong time.
That makes it... Sorry, I put a cough drop in. That makes it sound like it's not the person's fault for acting on it, though. Like, you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you still walk through that door, you made that choice. Like, the wrong place, the wrong time sounds like a thing that happens to a person. But choosing to walk through a door and choosing to sleep with somebody you're not in a relationship with, that would be considered cheating for a relationship you are in, that's a choice you're making.
So when it comes to things like inappropriate images online, the best way to avoid it is, if you have that problem, get rid of your method. Whether it's
I'm just going to get rid of my computer, my phone, access to the internet. Yeah, let me just get rid of all that.
iPhone, a computer, or put protection on that where your wife or husband can monitor you.
I hate that. I hate that so much. Accountability when you're trying to break a habit is fine. But having some sort, like, normalizing this spyware type of monitoring is insane to me. You're allowed to have privacy in your relationships, even married, whatever. Like, you are allowed to have your own privacy on your phone, on your computer. It doesn't mean that you don't trust the other person or that they don't trust you. You can just have privacy and it's fine. I don't necessarily condone the spying on your spouse's device method of breaking a habit, though. I think that's creepy.
This is important. Look, I want to help you. If you struggle in this area, I want God's word and I want these facts to be able to help you know the truth. People say it's not damaging to the mind. I'm sorry, science says otherwise.
You haven't given us the info.
These are even evolutionists that admit this. Big names in the evolutionary community.
You haven't told us what they are.
And I even had a Christian tell me, that's not true. It doesn't destroy brain cells. Did you even read the papers?
No, because you didn't cite the source.
What science are you studying? Science from like 50 years ago? Are you studying Darwinism? That's as dumb as Darwin. And these people that praise Darwin, they put the Darwin fish on their car. They think that Darwin was such a great scientific mind. Look, Darwin said, and I quote, "Often a cold shudder has run through me," back in the 1800s, "and I have asked myself whether I've devoted my life to a fantasy." So Pastor McMurtry, if I got a...
Matt conveniently forgot the rest of that quote and the preceding context. But I've put it here for you so that you can see what Darwin was actually talking about.
Up here and I said, you know, it's been really good giving this message, brother, but I'm afraid that I'm living in a fantasy. Would you trust anything that I'm saying? Do I even really believe what I'm saying? So Darwin...
That was a really weird performative little bow he gave.
Do I even really believe...
No, I didn't go far enough. There we go.
Afraid that I'm living in a fantasy.
What the... I don't think he rehearsed that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it.
Would you trust anything that I'm saying?
Bad.
Do I even really believe what I'm saying? So Darwin, when he said, "I'm afraid I'm living in a fantasy," but people go, put the Darwin fish on their... They don't even know what Darwin said or what he...
Matt is specifically misrepresenting that quote here. Also, like, Darwin's not the end-all be-all for evolution anymore. He was just the first person to get published with this idea, and more specifically, like, speciation. But, like, Matt couldn't even go, like, one sermon without misrepresenting evolution.
Is even about. But, you know, these people that claim to be free thinkers, a lot of times they are confined thinkers. They don't know how to free think. But then they think they know how to think when they've graduated, when they've only been told what to think instead of how to think.
I want to know what college Matt went to, because all of the college classes that I took taught me how to think critically and examine sources to see whether or not they were legitimate, whether or not they were illegitimate's a good word, but just if a source didn't pass muster, we got points off for not using it. If we used Wikipedia to cherry pick quotes, we got points off. So, like, I want to know where he went, that was his experience, or if he's being told that that's what the experience in other places is. But I mean, I went to a community college and then I transferred to a 4-year university. So I've been to 2 different colleges, and at no point was I told what to think. I was taught how to critically examine things that are put in front of me. Before you know it, no amount of women on that screen will cut it for you. Not only that, or men, it will wreck your marriage. It will No, it won't. Destroy you. No, it won't. Over time, it makes men physically dysfunctional in their marriage. I mean, if you masturbate too much, you may run into some performance issues when you go to have sex or, intercourse or whatever. But, like, If you are having physical issues or performance issues, that is something more that you need to go talk to your doctor about. Because if you're having any sort of, also your therapist, sorry, if you have performance anxiety, if you have any kind of anxiety popping up, like so much of sex is also mental, and if we can't, just relax our brains and enjoy what's going on, that's going to cause physical problems too. So like, talk to your partner, talk to your therapist, talk to your doctor.
Satan wants to destroy your
I have a package.
body. The Bible says the body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. This is how he does it. He walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, the Bible says. A roaring lion. Who's ever heard of the lion's den? He walks about as a roaring lion. It's just right there in your face. It's of the devil.
I don't know what he's talking about anymore.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Lack of satisfaction is running rampant. That's why people are angry. They're not being satisfied with their marriage. Turn over to Proverbs, and this is probably where we'll end. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 15. I have written here, bragging about, because the world brags about this. They take pleasure in their sin and they brag to you about it. Bragging about sleeping with multiple people equals bragging about harming them. That's something.
Only if that person ascribes harm to sleeping with someone. If that person does not believe that they are harming someone by sleeping with them and they go to brag about it, then they don't see that they're bragging about harm. Like, you're the only one that's ascribing harm to sleeping with someone in this hypothetical context. So your interpretation is that they're bragging about harm, but they are not actually saying, well, I messed that other person up by sleeping with them. No. I don't know if Matt knows how reality functions.
That they have to live with. It's a shame and an embarrassment to those who have integrity about their body. If you sleep around, you are showing the world that you don't take your body seriously.
I'm showing the world that I enjoy having a body and doing what I want with it.
You are showing your future spouse that you never took them seriously. People have mad respect.
Listen, if we're not married now, it's not cheating on you for me to sleep with somebody right now. If I'm in a relationship with somebody and I sleep with somebody else, and that's not in our relationship agreement, that's cheating. But if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I sleep with them, I'm not cheating on a future partner, because me and that future partner aren't together right now.
For those who wait until marriage. And even though people make fun of you, I was made fun of. Oh, you're a virgin. You haven't been with a woman. People would make fun of me for that. Then I got married. Praise the Lord. And that was a great thing. It's great to be married and to wait on the Lord. The Bible says those who wait upon the Lord shall mount up with wings as eagles. So
I was a virgin for a really long time and vocal about it, and more than I should have been. I was obnoxious about it. Actually, somebody told me I had to stick up my butt once, but I wasn't specifically made fun of, at least to my face, for it. I actually had one friend who told me how much she respected that choice. She didn't go to my church or anything. So I have to wonder who Matt is hanging out with and whether or not they're very good friends to him. Because it sounds like he has some really shit platonic relationships, whether it's coworkers or friends or what have you. He acts so self-righteous. I understand why he might get bullied, because he's an asshole and people don't respond well to assholes. I'm not saying anybody should go bully anybody else. Do not bully people. Don't be an asshole. I'm just saying I understand if the way that Matt, like if this is any indication of how Matt interacts with people, I understand why somebody might make fun of him. And I think it was probably just him being a virgin was a low hanging, fruit. I don't think it was because he was a virgin. I think it's because he's an asshole.
They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And in this area of marriage, it's important to wait. Now, I'm glad that my wife doesn't have to worry, was so-and-so better? Constant anxiety. Women already have enough anxiety.
How many women have you talked to? Oh my God.
That's the last thing that we need, is that to happen as well. Marriage is already hard enough as it is.
I would say any relationship is hard enough as it is.
The Bible says, drink waters out of thine own cistern, verse 15, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and the rivers of water in the streets. Let them be thine only, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hind and as the pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. Not somebody else's love. Don't look to be satisfied with somebody else.
But again, we're humans and we're fallible. So what if you got married before and then got divorced later? What about that? Like, you're going to make divorced people feel like shit with this whole thing. Like, just shut the fuck up.
Be satisfied with your spouse. That's what the Bible says. I have it written here as well. Listen to me, young people. Satan wants to destroy your life. He wants to destroy your marriage before you even meet your spouse. He wants to handicap you. He wants you spiritually dead. People always say, I want this closeness with my significant other. Well, if you want closeness, you need to stop cheapening yourself by hanging out with other people and having relationships with all sorts of different people. Don't cheapen your body. If you're a woman, your body is precious. If you're a man, your body is precious before the Lord. And the Bible even says that the adulteress will hunt for the precious life.
I don't know if he's going to get into it, because the last time I watched this, I think I cut this off pretty shortly after this, but the early 2000s purity culture had a lot of analogies for women's bodies when they had sex. Chewed up piece of gum, a piece of tape that loses its stickiness the more things you tape it to and rip it off of. Just a lot of really, really negative equivalents to objects. And at no point was I instructed on how to identify what a healthy relationship even was, how to maintain a relationship and have healthy conversations and discussions. I was never told what red flags to look for beyond whether or not they were worldly. It was essentially like, if they were the same religion as you, you're good. That's all you need. That's all the info you need. You don't need anything else. Just go to church and pray about it. Just pray about it. Well, I had no framework. I had no foundation. I knew what my parents' relationship looked like. He knew what his parents' relationship looked like. That was it. And I've learned so much more about cultivating relationships now that I'm divorced than I ever got from my church community leading up to and during my marriage. And it was all bullshit like this that I heard. It's not helpful.
Now, people think that, in the classroom, they think that, we need to have, sex education. People need to be educated. No, people need to learn biology.
I hate this too. he's probably going to get into like chromosomes or something. I can't remember, but we need proper sex education. We need proper education on contraceptives. And if you are someone who would like the abortion rate to go down, you should look into how things like comprehensive sex education and access to contraceptives plays into reducing the number of abortions. Since Donald Trump's presidency, abortions have gone up in the U.S., and there's a number of different factors, but one of the ones has to do with making it more difficult to obtain contraceptives and to obtain abortions. And so what's happening is the clinics that are in places where there are less limits are seeing an increase in places or in rates from out of towners, basically. And the other thing is too, like, when we don't have access to effective methods of contraceptives, then sometimes abortion is the only option. So, like, if you want abortion numbers to go down, and I think most people do, regardless of whether they identify as pro-life or pro-choice, then you really need to think critically about why or why not you want sex education to be better, and why or why not you want contraceptives to be available, basically. Because if you want the abortion numbers to go down, you need sex education, early and comprehensive, and you need access to effective methods of contraceptives. You can't take those two things away and expect the abortion numbers to stay down. You can't, because historically that has not happened.
Basic anatomy. Are you sex education? That's the last thing that kids need to be thinking about. Biology, anatomy, cosmology, geology, those are the things that you should be learning about, so that when it comes time to even defend your faith or talk to people, you're a literate person. People always say, Matt, you just really aren't about education because you really preach a lot out of this book right here and this old book. Look, go on my channel sometimes. I'm all about education. I love education. But I think that everything that we do should be based on the Word of God. They say, well, why do you believe the Bible's true? Because the Bible. It really is that simple. They say, well, there is no truth. Is that true? Because if it's true that there's no truth, how could we be sure that that statement's true? How could we be sure that anything's true? And if there is truth, absolute truth, then truth proves itself. See, if my words were the reason that you accept the book, then my words would be the final authority. The reason that you should accept the Bible is because the Bible proves its own authority. They say it's a circular argument. I don't care what shape the argument is. The Bible has...
A circular argument is a logical fallacy. And if Matt were more up on just like actual debate, so Matt doesn't like debating. He said that before. If he was more up on debating, he would realize that a logical fallacy is not a good thing.
Power. Never a man spake like this man. Amen. You know, divorce is running rampant in our nation right now. So, you know, people...
That was a big face touch. He may have just had an itch, but it was interesting that he did it across his face versus with that same side hand.
People, they get fed up with their spouse, and then when their spouse starts having issues, they jump ship. When we shouldn't do that. Did Jesus jump ship on your salvation when you were a sinner? He paid for our sins past, present, and future. I was out soul winning with Brother Austin Dennis today, and he made the point to this Catholic gentleman that Jesus died 2,000 years ago. That means he died for the sins that you were going to commit before you committed them. Once you are saved, you are always saved. You cannot lose your salvation. That is a done deal. You say, well, Brother Powell, you're just giving people a license to get away with all this sin. Look, the people that have the license to get away with sin are the people who don't get saved, because they can get away with anything. I can't get away with sin because God will punish me. The Bible says...
So is God not going to punish the people that don't accept it?
That the Lord punishes those who he receives as his children. He chastens every son that he receiveth. So he chasteneth all of us. So the people who can get away with sin are the unsaved. They get away with it all the time. We can't. Even though there's nothing we can do to separate ourselves from his love.
Interestingly, he has gone over to his right for us, for we, and then over to his left for the negative, the thems, the they who aren't saved. This is actually a fairly common tactic for most people to have like a preferred side and a not preferred side or negative side. It can correlate with whether like they're right hand dominant versus left hand dominant, but not necessarily. It just happens to be, and it's actually more. It's less about the right left hand dominant and more like how we read. Like from left to right. Sometimes. Maybe that's for more sequential items versus just in and out groups. But
there's nothing that we can do to undo what the cross did for us. You think you're more strong than God? He said that you're in my hand and I'm in the Father's hand. No man shall be able to pluck you from my hand, from his hand.
If I didn't know better, I'd say Matt got that out of a porno.
I want to iterate this, that when you get divorced, you've had children. That's very hateful towards the children. People don't always understand this. It's wrong. It's really hurtful for them to have several different sets, because likely you'll get a divorce again, and then they've got 3 different dads.
I think this was about where I turned it off last time. My ex was abusive, emotionally abusive towards me. And I called it quits when he laid hand on one of our children. Fuck you, Matt. It was not hateful of me to leave that situation. It was not hateful towards my children. I process internally when I'm going through something that is particularly difficult. I may confide in 1 to 2 other people. And at the time I was going through the separation, it was 3 people in particular. None of them were my family. None of them were church members. One was my best friend who, I just celebrated 20 years with. She wasn't in my church, but she does go to church. And she still does. And of those people that I told, there was a wider circle who I had told what had happened, like what the catalyst for it was. But even like, I hadn't told my parents very much. And it took my parents a long time to realize that, if she's saying she's had enough, it had to have been pretty bad. Because I wasn't saying that. And actually my sister was one of the people I was confiding in. And she told my parents, imagine how bad it had to have been for her to say, enough is enough. And that was when they were like, oh crap. Because for a while they supported my ex because he was the only one communicating with them. Because I was doing everything internally or with these 3 other people. Anyway, all that to say, on one of my days home, so in the state I live in, if you have mutual children, you have to separate for a year and live separately for a year before you can even file for divorce. They've since changed the laws, so if you can get to a mutual agreement prior to that year, then you can file. but that didn't take effect until after our 1 year had already elapsed. But anyway, during my time there with the kids, I lived with my best friend on my off days, and then I was at the house with the kids. It was really important to me that they had consistency and they weren't being schlepped to different places while we figured all of this out. So we shared the house so that the kids could have that consistency, and then we each went to different places while the other was there. Someone, to this day, I don't know who, I have a suspicion, and I'm no longer talking to that person coincidentally anyway, but I had a book mailed to my house that was about how damaging divorce was to children. And I was furious because whoever had that sent to me, and it was sent by the author because there was a long handwritten thing from the author to me in the beginning of the book. That it was just, that was hateful to me because someone who did not have any insight into my abusive relationship with my ex was trying to tell me what the best decision was for my children. No fucking way. I threw that shit in the trash immediately, and I feel awful if I have to throw like books out, even if they're damaged or recycled or whatever. I threw that immediately in the trash with no guilt because fuck them. Most disrespectful shit I had ever seen. I posted on Facebook about it later that day, and it was I vaguely alluded to it as like, you know, someone sent me a gift, but I was very open about the fact that I considered it extremely disrespectful because they couldn't know the intricacies of my relationships, and they couldn't know whether or not I was making the best decision for my kids, for myself. So my kids are happy and healthy today and thriving. And I had a therapist like all through that, and you know, she gave me things to look for if the kids weren't adjusting well. And even for all the crap that my ex still tells the kids that's not something I consider appropriate, they're still doing really, really well. They eat normally, they sleep normally, they play, they fight like siblings. Like, it's all really, really good. And you know, my parents, my family came around. Divorce is a tough thing to navigate, and I really wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I will say it was the right decision for me. And there are going to be situations where it is the right decision. I had the fortune of speaking with a coworker as I was first going through it, whose parents had divorced while she was in high school. And she said that at the time she was devastated, but not very long after, she could see how much happier they were separately and how much better her relationship was with them individually afterwards too. And my kids were young enough that it wasn't going to be such a dramatic shift. I mean, it's obviously still a fairly big change, and now we do live in separate houses, and they do go back and forth between houses, but it's not Christianity demonizes divorce, and it shouldn't. My experience with Christianity and divorce was complete. I felt ostracized. I felt unsupported. I felt unwelcome because I made the choice to leave an abusive relationship. At some point, My ex had even tried to get our priest to talk to me. I didn't have a relationship with that priest. He was an old guy. I wasn't going to talk to him about jack shit. But everyone in my life who was religious encouraged me to stay and work it out, as if I hadn't already been trying that. And then he hit my kid. I'm more personal than I meant to get with this video. More personal than I got last time, but whatever. Christianity demonizes divorce, and it shouldn't. It's incredibly painful. Nobody actually wants to go through with it. And those that do choose to do it aren't doing it for fun. And you should be more supportive if you claim to be loving and, mirroring Jesus and all that.
5 different moms. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Why would you want to do that to your kids? If anything, if you have a crazy spouse, stick with them for the sake of your own.
That's where I cut it off. No. If you have a crazy spouse, leave. There are resources out there that will help you. Leave. And if you have a church, if you have anybody in your life that tells you to stay in a dangerous relationship, you need to leave that relationship too. And tell them to fuck off.
Children. If you can't I think the Bible teaches you can leave them. I think that, the Lord's okay with divorce, even though the Bible says the Lord hateth divorce, the putting away. I think that that's okay. What about your kids? I mean, I don't want my son.
He just stuck his thumbs in his pockets there. We do that when we don't know what to do with our hands. I'm unsure what that means for him here, because at this age, at this point in time, his kid's only like a year-ish old.
I'm having to see somebody else with my wife unless I died. If I died, I would want my wife to get remarried. People need a father and a mother. That's what helped me to grow up, and that's what's going to help you to grow up.
Now, that may have worked for you. It's not a requirement. There are plenty of same-sex couples and non-binary parents who are raising healthy, well-rounded children.
Now, you may not have had that. My wife actually didn't have a father, and so that has really complicated things for her. It made her life tough as a child, not to have a dad. They need dad and mom. And so when you get a divorce, and here's the thing, they say the grass is so much greener on the other side. Look, it may appear greener.
The grass is greener where you water it.
But you're living in a fantasy if you go and get remarried, because you'll wish that you could have gone back. You'll wish that you could have gotten it right.
At no point do I wish, or did I wish, to have gone back. I actually wish I'd left him sooner.
You say, well, what if somebody's spouse, what if you have an abusive husband that beats up his wife? Then that man should be beaten not to death, but should be beaten.
He almost said to death. That was a Freudian slip there. Also, how is that going to help his spouse that he's beating up if he gets beat? Like, that doesn't solve anything.
If you physically harm your wife, you should be whipped with a bunch of lashes. The Bible says, give honor unto her. It's not a sexist religion. They have a sexist religion.
Who is they? Is it atheists? Because atheists don't have a religion. That's kind of the point.
Evolution is a racist religion. Literally saying that we evolved from African Americans. What about the African Americans that are still
Nobody teaches that. Nobody teaches that.
alive today? That's rude. That's racist. They literally put African Americans in zoos back in the early 1900s and put them on display. They considered them to be the...
That was a thing that happened, and that's unfortunate. But now you're adding to it and furthering it for your point. And that's also disgusting.
missing links. There was a man, his name was Otabenga. They thought he was the missing link. He was fully human. This is all based in evolution. But they took and they had him in a zoo, and unfortunately, it just wasn't a good scenario. The religion of evolution is what encourages people to act like animals. That's why I preach against it so much. That's why I actually will go and debate anybody on it. I'll debate any biologist, zoologist, geologist.
Except he won't. He doesn't like debates. He said that more than once.
Cosmologist, any of them. And they can try and defend their position. But they'll fail every time. Because it's funny, the same people that think that dinosaurs farted themselves to death are the
Nobody thinks that.
same people that want to tell you, oh, there's errors in your Bible. They literally teach that dinosaurs farted themselves to death.
Nobody teaches that. That is the clickbait title of an article that talks about a possible cause for mass extinction.
And then one guy says, well, Matt, you have misrepresented us. We believe that they tooted and it warmed the environment. That sounds even more stupid. And that's why they died. They died from the global warming. And we covered a lot of that, Brother McMurtry. We covered the squids and octopi that crash landed to Earth. I mean, this stuff is just crazy. But this is the crowd that wants to tell you not to keep your purity. They think that they have the advice for life. They don't have the advice for life. Just last month, a rock fell from the sky, and they said, there's the answer. It has the ingredients for life. There's the answer. That's lazy science. A rock falls from the sky onto somebody's driveway, and they say, well, it contained the ingredients, though, Matt. Okay, big deal. I could put a frog in a blender, blend it up. That is all the ingredients for life. But I don't expect the frog to put itself back together and start hopping around again.
That is a terrible analogy and not at all what anybody would have been talking about when it comes to the ingredients that would have been on, a meteorite or whatever that fell.
Folks, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. I just made that point to say that people that encourage you to do wrong, that make fun of you and say you're not masculine for looking upon different people.
Just because you have a problem with your bullies, Matt, doesn't mean that everybody encounters this. Just FYI.
Different women. Folks, they don't know what they're talking about. Professing themselves to be wise, they will become fools. And here's the thing. Guard your purity. Guard your heart. The Bible says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. The Bible says that there's a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof is the ways of death. Let's pray.
Nope. Okay. That is the end of that. There's like 4 minutes left, so he's probably just going to pray for 4 minutes, so whatever. Yeah, we actually had sound this time. And I made it more further through than I did the last time, but it was still an infuriating video to watch. My next couple of videos are probably going to be more palate cleansers. There's been some stuff in the celebrity reality TV realm that I want to look at that has some actually like really good body language. Matt through this was pretty consistent throughout. So as far as like a baseline goes, like a lot of his hand movements were very much the same. And it's kind of in an early Matt Powell baseline where we got to see like his full body, because most of the stuff like on YouTube now isn't necessarily his full body, but he's a particularly hate-filled person and is not terribly charitable. And I don't get the impression that he actually cares about other people, because otherwise he wouldn't say such awful things about people in the out group, like I can't stand Kent Hovind and Matt Powell, and I don't call them harlots or sluts or whatever. Like it's a level of projection and self-hate that you have to call other people those kinds of awful things. It's because you see something in yourself that you don't like, that you call them names like that. So, yeah, anyways, Matt Powell in particular disgusts me more than Hovind does. And Hovind, I think, is more like... Hovind is so stuck on his script that he's not going to stray from it, really. Like, he's dangerous in that he's got that cult of personality and the cult at DAL on that compound. But he's not, and he is a convicted, he was convicted of domestic assault, so clearly he's also physically dangerous. But Matt Powell has he has a vibe about him that absolutely terrifies me. And I don't know what it is, or I don't want to say what could potentially be slanderous and land me in trouble, you know, like, I've met people like Kent Hovind, and they're abusive assholes. But the people like Matt Powell scare the bejesus out of me, and I avoid them at all costs. So it's terribly unfortunate that Hovind and Powell have met up and have some sort of weird relationship together. So anyway, thanks for sticking around. This was an extra long one. And I hope you'll, for what it's worth, I hope you enjoyed it. This was a tough one to sit through. And we'll look at some reality television in the next couple of videos as a palate cleanser. So enjoy the rest of your day. Please, please, please be kind humans. Bye.